Hey everybody, this is another basics video for my playlist Tips for New Riders. This playlist is designed to answer all the questions that someone who's never ridden a bike before would want to know. It covers everything from how to ride a bike, what's involved in the licenses, what licenses you can go for. There's mechanical stuff too, and I have a separate playlist called Mechanical Explanations. And these are basic explanations of things to do with motorcycles, generally mechanics, to give someone with no knowledge of the subject a basic idea of what we're talking about when people talk about these things. So, EGR valves and pair valves on motorcycles, you may have heard about being able to blank them off and remove them. Your mates may have told you that it's going to add extra power, but let's first clear something up. I have in the past used the terminology of EGR and pair valve interchangeably, and that was wrong. They are fundamentally different things. So let me first explain what an EGR valve is, and know that you don't find these on motorcycles. These are normally on diesel engines and things like that. So I'm going to go super simple here. If this is the engine and this is the exhaust, this is the intake, this is the airbox, and so you got exhaust this side, intake this side. Okay, so air in through the engine, exhaust out. An EGR valve is exhaust gas recirculation, because what it's doing is it takes some of the exhaust gases and it leads those back into the airbox, which means that they then go back into the engine when it goes through its combustion cycles. And in doing so, it reduces the temperature of the combustion, which reduces the amount of nitrogen oxide that gets released, which is bad for the environment. This is normally done on diesel cars. I have in the past used EGR and pair valve interchangeably. It still works because it does the same job. Effectively, it's trying to reduce emissions, but it does it in a fundamentally different way to a pair valve or a SAS valve, as it may also be known. So, as I say, EGR is on cars normally. I don't know of it being on any bikes, and that's the way that it works. Motorcycles have pair valves or secondary air injected systems, or a variation of different names. So people might refer to it as a pair valve. They might also refer to it as an SIA, which is a secondary air injection system. And there's also SAS, which is supplementary air system. So basically, you know, it's pair, SAS, something like that. It's doing the same thing. Okay, so this will be on a motorcycle, but we're still going to do the same basic explanation of this being the engine, this being the exhaust out, this being the inlet, this being the airbox. So you have this valve, which is called the pair valve or the SAS valve. So basically there is one hose that goes to the airbox. There is one hose which goes to a port on the engine. On some bikes it's literally like, if you think this is the exhaust manifold with your bolt holes looking straight onto the engine, you know, with that sort of a shape. It may very well be here, and it will be an elongated hole like that with a screw head here and here, and then it will have a pipe coming out of it like so. And we have a third line that comes off. Now on a carburetted bike, this would go to the carb. I guess this is going to be different on fuel injected systems. It's going to have to connect somewhere similar, but basically you are getting a vacuum on this line to operate this valve. What the pair valve is doing is at low RPMs or deceleration, it is allowing air, fresh air that is, from the airbox to come through the pair valve, be dumped into the exhaust itself and go out with the exhaust gases. The reason this is done is so any of the unburnt fuels in the air gases, by making it more air rich, makes it want to pop. So if the exhaust is hot and there's unburnt gases, or unburnt fuel, should we say, in the exhaust, the added air helps burn that off. That will burn off what exhaust gases there are hotter, which gives you less hydrocarbons. Now, most modern bikes are also going to have a cat on them, as in a catalytic converter, and obviously by reducing the hydrocarbons that are going into that, it elongates the life of that, because that's what the catalytic converter is removing. By using platinum, it catalyses the hydrocarbons. Something to be aware of is that, well, some people will say you want to remove the pair valve system because it will steal power from your bike. It won't, obviously, because it's not actually affecting the engine, it's affecting the exhaust gases. I mean, I guess you could say that slightly less air was going into the engine than maybe, But the thing is, these only operate at low RPMs and on deacceleration. When you're, flat out or there's high RPMs on the engine, the system is basically blocked because of the valve, and it's not allowing anything to happen anyway. So this only affects, as I say, on low RPMs, which helps give you cleaner burning exhaust at low RPMs, and on deceleration. Now, one thing to note, the big difference you will notice if you remove this from your bike, is if you have a bike which, for instance, when you decel, goes pop, 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 bang, 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 as you're slowing down, that is because you've got all that unburnt fuel going through the exhaust system, there's extra air being dumped in, so it's popping and banging. If you block this off, it will most likely mostly stop that. So if you don't like the fact that your bike backfires and crackles all the way down as you decelerate, you can block this off to try and stop it doing it. Now, it probably won't do it as noticeably if you've got a catalytic converter fitted, so generally the only people that are going to notice this maybe excessive popping and banging would be people with aftermarket exhausts which don't have any cats in them and have a pretty much straight through system, normally quite short as well. My XJ6 is a prime example there. It doesn't have a cat on it, it has a short aftermarket exhaust, and I haven't removed the pair valve system from it, and it crackles all the way down as you deaccelerate. I quite like the sound of it. It is better for the environment because it means it's burning off the unburnt fuels, and it sends flames out the side of it. So for me, I don't want to remove it from that bike. It would be easy to do, and I'll talk about that in a second. I did remove it on my DRZ, basically because it was in a load of extra kit on the bike that didn't need to be there, and that bike did backfire quite crazily. It still backfires a bit, but it's actually a bit tamer, a little less antisocial, I'd say. 440cc, because I've had the kit done to it, single cylinder with an open exhaust, backfiring every time you let the exhaust off just can get a little bit much. As I say, on the XJ6 was an inline-4, it's just a nice sort of burbly crackle. So there's no reason to remove these systems unless you wish to, and the way that is done is if it's going to be something simple like a 125cc, it's going to be a setup with this system on the front of the engine most likely, so you're going to need a blanking cap to cover that up. You can then block off the airbox hose, and make sure you do block that off on the airbox, like get a little rubber cover or something. You can even cut the hose and like seal the end of that, but it's better to get a proper little bung. They're not expensive on like eBay. Remove the entire valve itself. It's extra weight, you don't need it, and any of the other hoses that come off of it. You're going to have to... The reason I'm not doing this like on one of my bikes or specifically is because it's all slightly different, and what you can do is go and search how to remove the valve on your bike, and then you'll know how to do it. But it will generally be like this, as I say, blanking off the front, blanking off the airbox, removing the valve itself, and if it's like a carburetted bike, then maybe blocking off what that was connected to, or you may not need to, it depends. On something like an inline-4 600cc like my XJ6, there are various different ways you can blank this all off. Sometimes it's as simple as just basically blocking one hose, and that's all you do. You can also get blanking caps which go inside your airbox. Again, the whole idea is just to block the system off. Now, I don't know how that would work on the XJ6 because obviously in the exhaust system it has an O2 sensor, which is obviously picking up the oxygen, and that affects how the bike runs. If you remove the pair valve system, is that going to have an effect on the O2 sensor? Now, obviously it shouldn't make any difference really, because when you're on the power and when you're you're accelerating hard, the engine isn't going to be running any air through it, so it's only going to be at low RPM. If it's getting less oxygen, it's going to end up running rich. That could lead to the bike being sluggish, depending on if it adjusts correctly, off the line anyway. But yeah, so generally there is no reason to remove them, unless, like with my DR, I just wanted to take everything off it that didn't need to be on it, and also try and tame that backfiring down because, well, overrun. If you want to see a good example of like an extreme pair valve system, go to a video of mine called, oh god, I'll have to link it at the end. On the thumbnail it says bang bang bang, and it's where the exhaust manifold bolts, these bolts, loosened off on my DR as I was riding up the motorway, and it completely loosened off, and so much extra air was getting into the exhaust that it was just like a shotgun going off second after second after second. It was so loud. But anyway, there you go. That should explain to you the simple basics of what an EGR valve is, and the fact that you won't find those on bikes, what a pair valve or a secondary air system is, and what it does. I'm sure there's some more nuanced details out there to do with, you know, little bits depending on bikes and stuff, but that is a basic overview. If you found this video useful, please hit that like button. I would very much appreciate it. Check out my playlist, Tips for New Riders. If you're not subscribed to this channel, I would appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. I'm very close to 100k. And if you want to help support this channel, then please do consider doing that through Patreon, links in the description, or there's my merch stores that you can also find links to in the description. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.